Hello, my name is Juana Gallegos, and today I will be talking about my analysis with the RTI, the IEP, and the 504. My information was gathered by an interview with the school psychologist at my school that I work at, and with the principal as well, and also from my gathered information from the internet resources. So what I gathered from the three supports is that the overreaching goal for each can be very similar but also very different. The response to intervention, known as RTI, is a three-tier approach to the early identification and support of a student with learning and behavior needs. Following this, the Individual Education Program, known as IEP, is used under the Individuals with Disabilities Educational Act that covers students who qualify for special education and provides accommodations and modifications. The 504 plan covers the students who do not meet the criteria for special education but do require accommodations. So I will first talk about the response to intervention, and the reason why I'm starting with this one is because the school psychologist at my school basically told me that it is best for students to first initiate with this intervention because it is the first initial process for students that may or may not yet have a known disability, and this would be a good form of the students and for the parent to understand what are the needs of the student. From there, when the RTI process is being started, the school is required to monitor the student's performance. The referral process can be initiated by the parent or in many cases by the school teachers. The role with the school district's role is that they are responsible to design, implement, and monitor the intervention plan. And the RTI team could consist of the administrator, as in the principal, general education teacher, a school psychologist, the ELL teacher, a special education teachers, and the parent. From this, what I gathered from the school psychologist is that many of the referrals are made by the teachers, and that at times when they do the referral is that they lack the data collected from the student. So from this, I gather that it is very important to collect data before with the referral process because it helps understand more of what the student needs and what are their struggles. From there, once the student is given the RTI supports, they give it towards a base of the three models. The first one being not as severe, and if they are having continuous struggles, they go on to tier 2, and if they consist with struggles, they go on to tier 3. Within my school district, I was given these forms by the school principal, and this is a sample form of what they would look like with the how they are giving access to the student supports. So as you would see here, this is the general information, and then they would establish the area of need and the current reading levels, and then the goal. And as I scroll down, you will notice that here are the small providers are this would be the teacher, and then who monitors the progress would be the teacher. Benchmark interventions are also stated, and the time and the frequency. As you can see, the frequency is more constant, so it would be 4 times per week. And the duration would be 30 minutes. I also gathered here that they have a more detailed information about how they're collecting the data. So that was very interesting for me to learn. And then about the strategies and what are given in the class. Following this is the my analysis with the individual educational program. And as I mentioned before, this is when the student is qualified for special educational services. The school's accountability in this is that public schools are responsible for the student's performance and identifying the goal. A referral can be initiated by a teacher, a parent, or other school personnel. And as I mentioned, the IEP is required under the law of IDEA. It's an educational law. And the IEP team that would be in this process is the administrators, such as the principal, a special education teacher, school psychologist. The student as well can be in the process. I believe, as my research shows, that between the ages of 15 and older, and speech pathologists and occupational therapists as well. and as well as the parent. In the IEP samples that I gathered from my school is this first one. The prior written notice is basically provided to the parent prior to the they must give consent basically before they are provided services. So this is a sample form of that. I thought that was really interesting because I didn't know that the importance of a parent consent in this IEP process. And then following that, the assessment plan. So this was, like I said, gathered from the school psychologist, and this is basically a blank form of how the IEP assessment plan is initiated. So many of this, like I said, this is really important for students who do qualify for our special needs services. And then following this is the 504 plan. And then from this, this information I actually gathered from the principal from my school. Basically, the school's accountability with this is that it requires K through 12 and also post-secondary institutions that receive federal funding that ensures students to not be excluded from learning programs. So this could go on to adulthood. The referral process can be initiated by a teacher, a parent, and a school personnel as well. The role of a 504 is required by the Rehabilitation Act, as in a civil rights law. And the 504 team members can include the parent, but not always, the principal, a classroom teacher, school nurse, and school counselor, as well as the student. So a sample form of the 504 would look something like this. Like I said, this was given to me by the school principal. I just put a fake name here, but this would basically be the eligibility determination form. To my understanding, when for example, the teacher gives a referral, the principal is in charge of creating the teams necessary. And then basically the teacher would be the one that fills the majority of this form out. Mostly, unfortunately, the parents are unaware of their types of resources out there. So that's why I think it's more of that teacher that gives this referral at first. Once the parent is involved, they are given their parent and student rights. So as you can see here, this form is another example of what the parent will be given when they initiate the referral process and when they are given the form to have consent of these services. From this, what I gathered that there are a lot of similarities within the three, and that the similarities are that they offer accommodations and modifications, and that they are also team-based decision making. So it is really important that as a team that each one the decisions are being made. Parent consent are given for the three supports, and that there is no cost to the supports, and that each support works to meet the needs of the student, and that they all ensure the students to access the general educational programs. The differences that I mostly notice is that for example, the end of services, so the IEP services end after a student graduates high school, but can be given a transitional plan. The RTI ends after high school, and that the 504 moves forward into adulthood. I also gathered the differences that within the services. So for example, the 504 services do not offer services for students that do not have disabilities. So like I said, it also depends on the need and the disability of the services. But within the parent involvement, the only differences is that the 504 does not really require the parent involvement to be involved, and that is mostly with students that are in high school. The students are, like I say, more independent and are given more of the opportunity to be more involved in their planning process. So that's something that I gathered from that. Another here is a little example of the resources that I gathered, and it's basically what they call a cheat sheet. It is more of a detailed explanation of the differences and the characteristics of each one. And that is all that I gathered, and thank you so much for listening.